Preliminaries, and David Anton will have the white pieces. Here we go.
Yeah, I was just looking as well. We could end up in a situation with 4 or 5 players on 22 points, and it's just about their head-to-head scores. So head-to-head is important. That's why this game, both players will want to win, despite the fact they're on level points, despite the fact they're just inside top 8. And, OK, a quiet start to this game. It's a Queen's pawn opening, not the London system, not the Queen's Gambit, just David Anton there, just pushing a pawn, building a solid wall of pawns. So maybe his strategy, David Anton, is to just survive the opening, keep an eye on the other results, and then decide what to do. And Pragg copies it. He copies the setup. It's complete symmetry so far. White's bishop now developing. White ready to castle the king already at this early stage. And yeah, a cagey start. Pragg, what's he going to do? He looks full of energy, rocking back and forth. I mean, it must be early hours of the morning there already.
Right,
3 a.m. And yeah, he's clearly full of energy.
And he must be high on adrenaline after that incredible game.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, especially because Jordan perhaps wasn't someone that had pegged down that he was going to beat. And now he's realising that if he manages to secure a point at least, that he could qualify for the quarterfinals. And that would be a dream come true.
Oh, absolutely.
And the only thing is that it can be hard occasionally to come back down to earth, just kind of play with a stable mindset after such an amazing victory like his last game. Sometimes you're still carried away. Sometimes you just think, OK, luck's on my side. You get a bit too artistic, a bit too complacent, and chess, things can backfire. You've got to be objective still. So Pragg, in a way, he needs to just forget the last game and just think, OK, it's all about this one shot, this one penalty kick, this one opportunity. And if the chance comes to play for a win, try and seize it. If it's just level, playing for a draw, maybe that's a decent result too. He's still got good odds to qualify. But yeah, so far, he's playing very sensibly as black. Still a very standard position. I think they call this the Collet system.
I was going to ask you the name. I think it's the Collet, right?
I think it's the Collet.
I always get them confused, Torre and the Collet. But yeah,
Torre is when you bring the bishop out. Collet is when you lock the bishop in.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this opening, I must admit, when I was young, it was the bane of my life. Everyone played this against me when I had black, and I didn't know what to do. White system, it might look innocuous, it might look really innocent and kind of unimpressive, but there are ideas, and we'll talk about these ideas as this opening progresses. White is the first to castle, black now ready to do the same. And,
didn't our good friend Simon Williams win a very nice game?
He's won a
few in the British with this particular variation as white. So it looks like it's a very quiet line, you know, quite systematic, playing moves by hand, you know, not too much thought, but it does have some venom.
Yeah, against Ravi Harrier 2019.
That's right, yeah.
And yeah, the whole reason White goes for this setup is because actually that dark square bishop, White's bishop of the B2 square, is on a nice diagonal, and that diagonal is likely to open up at some point. At the very least, with White, you can hop into the centre, to the E5 square, with the White knight. And yeah, some very kind of specific ideas. It tends to be just pattern recognition here. Black tries to cut across those ideas, of course, later on. But yeah, we talk about the 1b3 opening as well, and White's basically done that, but a different version of it. White's bishop, that dark square bishop, look out for it. It might be the decider. It might be the key piece later on. I'm just loving fianchettoed bishops in general. And Pragg, meanwhile, does castle. He's got a healthy setup as well with black. He occupies the centre with some pawns. He still has to answer the question of that black light square bishop. But once he does that, he's got a healthy, playable position at least. I'm surprised the evaluation bar so far in White's favour because it looks sensible.
No, yeah, I mean, this is still very much mainline theory, so...
OK, and the pawn just steps forward. Again, very normal, very thematic, stopping the black knight from jumping in to the white half. And there we go. Black is playing copycat, doing the same with his light squared bishop that White has done with his dark squared bishop.
And Jan-Christoph Duda and Dingleren have played a draw to secure their spot in the quarterfinals. Well, most likely, but I would say they have secured their spot. They're both now on 23 points after that draw. A sensible time to take a quick draw.
Yeah, and maybe, is that the first quick draw we've seen in the whole Challenge?
Yeah, I think it is.
Yes, but it's going to impact their fighting chess index.
That's true.
We did see that Magnus and Ding were tormented by the quick draw because, you know,
The algorithm punishes you. Yeah.
It does punish you. And anyhow, there's a decision to be made on the board for Praggnanandhaa, which way should he recapture that pawn, with the bishop, with the pawn. Both sides have their pros and they also have their disadvantages. And whilst we're waiting for a decision to be made, well, we have some selfies I wanted to show you. The first one comes from Chloe, who's also feeling unwell. They got tested positive for COVID only a few hours ago. Thanks for keeping me company during isolation. Oh, sorry to hear that, Chloe. I do hope that it's a relatively, it's one of those COVID situations we don't suffer.
Yeah, and that you get well very soon. But if you are in isolation for a few days, well, the chess keeps going all the way until Saturday. Tomorrow is the quarterfinals. We then have semifinals and then a 2-day final to finish this off and find out who the winner is.
Yeah.
Okay, and Prag chooses to capture towards the centre with a pawn. You mentioned pros and cons, Jovanka, and that was very much the case. And okay, the one con to capturing back with your pawn towards the centre is that now black's pawns are getting undermined by the white pawns. If you captured back with the bishop earlier, you can play with pieces. Now you're reliant on playing with pawns. So Praggnanandhaa choosing the most ambitious option, but maybe the least solid option. So now it's very clear what David Anton wants to do. He wants to fight against these black pawns in the centre. So Prag needs to develop his pieces. He wants to be ready for when some pressure really does arise against his pawns. And who do you prefer here? I know it's early stages. I generally prefer white's flexibility, but I can see why maybe some players would like having these extra central pawns in the middle of the board.
Yeah, I'm one of these players who like having their central pawns. The way that I handle them is I basically don't take a decision with them for as long as possible. I just sit there and enjoy the space for as long as I can. So I will just develop all my pieces, connect the rooks, and then I wait and I wait and I wait. And I find that people can't handle that waiting too long and they make mistakes because it's human.
It's human to get impatient and actually want to take action, to do something. And I do the same, Jovanka, just on the other side. I like to play against these pawns and just wait and wait and wait until they become weaknesses or commit, and then leave weak squares behind. And meanwhile, a non-committal move from Praggnanandhaa in terms of his pieces and his pawns in the centre, but he just improves his rook. Look at that black rook that's just moved. It's eyeing up this white dark square bishop. I already highlighted that as the potentially key piece, and he's just putting pressure on the pawn in front of it, on the b3 square, and the piece behind. So a really nice move that from Praggnanandhaa. We saw it in the last game. If his pieces have energy, he tends to be happy. And that black rook, very, very happy where it is right now. And David Anton, meanwhile, we've seen a lot of decisive results from him. I wouldn't be surprised if he's very high up on the Fighting Chess Index after this tournament. Just a very entertaining player, a very creative player I've found. I've played him many times and my results have been good, but I don't think I've ever predicted more than one or two of his moves in a row. Just every turn he surprises me. He's got a very unorthodox way of thinking about the game, of setting problems. He's very tricky as well, calculates well. But sometimes if you play classically against him, just trying to blunt his creativity, he gets frustrated there. So, okay, a semi-threat on the board maybe. White, look how the bishops are both pointing towards the black king. And the white queen there teaming up with her bishop on this diagonal, and Praggnanandhaa blocks things up. Quick capture in the centre. We talked about pawns and not committing them. He's made that commitment, Jovanka.
Yeah.
What do you think of this one?
I don't like it.
For
white.
For white, okay.
For white, I mean, there was no need. There were pieces to be developed. There were rooks to join in the game. There was no need to rush with something like this.
Okay, so we should jump in to show why black isn't losing a pawn here, maybe, because actually it looks like black has just thrown a pawn away. This square, white is a pawn up, it's defended twice by a knight and bishop, and it's only attacked twice as well by black's pieces. But look at this, Praggnanandhaa jumping in with his knight, and now if knight takes knight, pawn recaptures. If David Anton gets greedy here and captures in the centre, we see an indirect attack by the black queen, and he plays bishop takes pawn, check, throwing his bishop away, but winning the black bishop, and suddenly attack on the rook. Also, the king, very vulnerable. But look at this. Surprising decision by David Anton, but maybe quite a strong one. Instead of taking with his knight, he's captured with his bishop instead. And after this trade, he's just going to rely on these pawns running forward. It's all about flank pawns here, the B and C pawns. against the central pawns. And I don't know, personally, I prefer the central pawns, but it takes a while for them to get motoring. And OK, this one, it's anything but safe chess from both sides. It's anything but a draw. For example, if we do see white stepping forward with a pawn, black doing the same, I mean, I have no idea whose pawn chain is stronger. These three connected or these two in the center. There's more at stake for the white side, maybe, because the central pawns look super scary, but you can block them. You can stop their advance. The knight covers the square, the bishop too, and the queen as well. And no more advance, no more adventure for this pawn in the middle.
Yeah, and in light of that, I was thinking maybe Praggnanandhaa has actually made a mistake by retreating his bishop on that square, because I mean, yeah, it's tricky. It's a really complicated position. I mean, white has all the long-term trumps because those passed pawns that he has on the left side, they're going to be incredibly powerful, difficult to stop. Whilst I don't know, it's
very tense.
It's really.
I guess you're hesitating because it's just so hard to evaluate, and the players, I don't think they'll be sure how to evaluate either. At least black can maybe do some knight jumping. You can jump towards the white king. Yeah, it's just really, really unclear. Black has the bishop pair, but it's maybe less of a factor than the current pawn structure. White with these strong pawns, of course, and black with these guys. Mm-hmm. It's yeah, definitely warming up this battle. And let's go back to the players. I just like the fact that they are both taking risks and playing for the maximum on every turn. And David Anton, another thing I mentioned about him, or that I want to mention, is that he loves his imbalances. And there we go. He moves his rook across. Instead of throwing the white pawns forward first, he wants to prevent, or at least delay, the advance of black's pawns in the centre. And there we go. Just hydrating. Very sensible in a high-stress situation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm guessing that Praggnanandhaa probably will copy as well. You know, white says, no, you can't advance your pawn. And he will say, yes, let me do it. And let me try to get that pawn pushed, at least.
Move the black rook one square across to the centre.
And I'm sitting here chatting to Ty to just, you know, get updated on these, you know, stats for who's going to make it through. So the draw between Duda and Ding, it did secure Duda's spot in the quarterfinals, and it's actually good news for these two. Mm. So that draw, if this game is now a draw, then both of these players will have an 89% chance to go through. It's going to be a draw here will then be bad news for Vidit. It's going to mean he's probably out, but I don't think these players will be aware. I mean, they can see the results from other games, but if they're aware that now a draw gives them very big chances to qualify, I don't know if they're aware of that.
Yeah, maybe they need Ty on speed dial just to find out the stats. But yeah, on a serious note, though, I mean, psychologically, it's so hard. I've been in these situations myself, and do you even want to know the other results? Yeah. Do you focus on the board and just try and play the best moves and take things as they come? Because if you're thinking too much about the results, if you're thinking, oh, a draw might give me an 80, 90% chance of qualifying, you might take a passive option. Playing for the draw is actually the worst way to get it. You should just play good moves, play for the win, and at some point you'll get to repeat the position, or you'll get to sacrifice something and just kind of swap off all the material. So yeah, sometimes kind of thinking too much about the result can backfire. All of my most heartbreaking defeats have been because I was thinking about the result too much.
Yeah, I have to say, whenever I've been in this particular situation, I found that the best approach is just to focus on my game. Yeah. Forget the others. You have no control on what other people do. The only thing you can control is how many good moves you make, and you can only do that if you're fully focused on the game.
I can relate from playing golf. So it's always a goal in golf to lower your handicap, so to always play a better round than the previous round. And as soon as I see, ooh, I have a lot of points now, if I play this next shot really nicely, I can lower my handicap, and then it's out in the woods every single time. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, these two players, credit to them, they look super focused. I doubt that they've got kind of other screens up, just kind of looking at those other games, looking at the other results, which they're allowed to do. It looks like they're very much focused on this position specifically. And as expected, white has built this nice pawn chain on the left side, black in the center also trying to mobilize. And this also looks like the type of position, Jovanka, I don't know if you agree, but the evaluation bar, it might swing side to side. And it's just really, it's just unbalanced, uncompromising, because the pawn structure is so weird, because the piece kind of combination as well is just slightly unorthodox with the black bishops, but then they're feeling a bit they're feeling like bystanders right now.
Yeah, especially the dark squared bishop, you know, is just jammed in by its own pawn, and also white's lovely pawn chain is controlling a lot of nice squares, and it's not entirely clear what the plan is. I mean, yeah, you know, white will, of course, like mobilize the knights, and then there will be and then. And the same goes for black. You know, yes, develop the light square bishop, but what next? Not easy, and I think you just have to almost take this position on a move-by-move basis.
Yep, agreed. Fully agreed. And it will come down to kind of a boiling point later where it's purely about calculation and who can push their pawns forward successfully and whether you can prevent your opponent's pawns marching forward successfully. But right now is kind of the calm before the storm, where it's still slightly cagey. Black there just pushing a pawn, covering some squares, giving the black king some breathing space, getting that pawn off the diagonal of the white bishop and queen. White, meanwhile, maybe going to try and improve the rooks, improve the knights, as Jovanka mentioned. It's going to just enter kind of a mini manoeuvring phase, and then it will explode, and then we'll see those pawn pushes, and then we'll see some real chaos. And yeah, still, if I had to predict, I think a draw extremely unlikely in this one, even if it helps both players in the standings.
All right, well, it's so typical in this round 15 that the games are just sort of waiting for each other to see what's happening in the others. The bars have been slightly to the middle, but in the game between Liam Le and Richard Rapport, the bar has slightly gone to Richard Rapport's side. He's fighting for a win to qualify. And if he wins that game, well, it could mean Magnus Carlsen with a win against Vidit could clinch the #1 spot. But that's going to go down to the Sonnenberger tie-break thing. You know, it would be impossible to calculate for us.
Where's my glittery calculator?
I know, we forgot it this time.
Oh, dear.
Need to get that back.
We'll have to rely on Ty to let us know, keep us informed on stats like that. But yeah, I mean, head-to-head is hard to calculate, especially if there's more than 2 players on the same score. Yeah, I mean, number of wins we can count, but the players, they won't necessarily know their opponent's results. Yeah, it's really complex. That's why it's just better to focus on the game. And yeah, we get access, of course, to the evaluation bars, and despite the fact the other players can check in on the other games, they won't have that ability, so they won't know how the other games are going. It's definitely a distraction to look over at another game, try to evaluate it, try to work out what's going on. And OK, meanwhile, nice move from David Anton, just sliding the white rook across. He's hinting that maybe he's relying on the white c-pawn, the most far advanced pawn for him, to do the damage later, to push that guy forward.
Yeah.
But then again, the white queen maybe needs to reroute itself, getting in the way of her rook. And OK, Pragg just bringing his knight to the centre. Another idea we discussed briefly. And maybe as well as jumping into the f4 square, where black knights are really dangerous, the white king will start to sweat. Also, the black queen has opened up a diagonal. Maybe it wants to use that one a bit later on.
No, I was just smiling because you used the word distraction, and that's like a nice link into the next selfie that I'd love to show you. Female nurse says that they're trying their best to read even just one page, but I can't resist watching you guys. Sorry for being a distraction, female nurse. And I hope you're able to multitask and enjoy the chess, our commentary, and also read a book.
Yeah, maybe study.
Yeah.
I don't think we should get blamed. It's the players. It's their fault. They keep playing exciting games. I mean, the standings are so close, so tight.
No, I can take the blame. I'll be happy to be someone's distraction. That's what I was going to say, but that sounded a bit strange.
All right, well, these two are in deep thought. Clock's ticking for David Anton, going down to 9 minutes on the clock. And we don't know if these two players are aware that a draw is good news and is going to probably clinch them a spot in the knockout stage. Does it seem like on their play that they're just going for the win, both of them?
Yes. A draw is far from both players' minds. Maybe they just thought, OK, winning this game will guarantee it.
Yeah, that's true.
So why not go for the win? Even Pragg with black, we've seen him beat Magnus Carlsen with black in the past. He doesn't really care. White, black, it doesn't matter when he's... well, it doesn't matter to the young Indian wonderkin. So.
And according to Ty, it's amazing to just be able to sit here and talk to him. Liam has much better Sonnenberger, the tie breaks, than Magnus. So he's definitely going to be the winner of the preliminaries. Impressive by Liam. There is no way Magnus can catch up with him. Even with a win, they will be on the same score. But Liam has better tie breaks.
Yeah, and it's a serious advantage, actually, to be at top of the table.
Oh, yeah, we've seen it.
Yeah, we have seen it before. But at first, you know, you're thinking, no, it's not a big deal. But, I mean, the ability to choose colours when you're playing the match and when you're playing tie breaks, I mean, we've seen it being super instrumental, especially if it came down to Armageddon, where one player was able to say, hey, I'm going to choose white, I'm going to have that extra time, and I'm just going to win the game on the basis of that.
And on paper, I guess you have a slightly easier route to the final, maybe if it's according to ratings, according to the top 8 standings. And yeah, Liam deserves that, because holding that game earlier that we saw against Magnus, I mean, that was just some of the most tenacious defence we've seen in the tournament. So yeah, well played to Liam for winning the prelims. But yeah, back to this game, and David Anton spending a significant amount of time, I think, on this move, and he's right to do so, because it's a critical moment. And Black's knight, if it jumps in, I mean, it has eyes on both sides of the board, but if it jumps in, then White has some serious questions to answer. So big moment now for David Anton.
Yeah.
And earlier I thought it was easier for White to play, maybe just for this move at least. It's not that case. It's really tricky to find a move.
And he does make a move, improving his knight. And you'll have to bear with me. I also want to show another warning that Mariana Lopez's cat has for David Anton and Praggnanandhaa. Too much thinking makes you go sleepy. Well, makes her cat go sleepy.
I know the feeling. We're going to sleep many times at the chessboard.
Yeah. Well, we do know Vidit sitting in India, same as Praggnanandhaa. It's super late for them. Vidit did tell us that he did have a nap in his chair during one of these days in the preliminaries.
Yeah, it's better to nap between the rounds, at least, than during the rounds.
Very true.
And 2 players that are definitely not napping are these 2, because things are indeed, as predicted, heating up. And there are tactics all over the place now. It looks like Black is giving up a pawn, but he's actually going for a checkmating attack against the White king. And the checkmating attack has been signalled by the advance of this knight. With White, we say the knight on f5 will thrive, and f4 is the kind of counterpart square to that. So the Black knight now pointing towards this White king. And if White gets greedy, which he might do, because I'm struggling to see what else, but if he jumps forward and takes this pawn, it looks like a free pawn, but after a capture, maybe after the knight takes, Black is going to try and bring his queen out. So it's a double attack. And OK, we haven't seen this, but he's threatening checkmate on this square using the queen and knight, but he's also hitting the White knight in the middle of the board with his rook and with his queen. And a tricky move from David Anton instead. This looks a bit scary for White, so he avoided this. He gave a check. And now the question is, which way to go? Do you go to the safer corner, or do you go towards the centre of the board? Centre of the board looks a bit scary because you're out in the open, and later on there might be some knight checks. But equally, if you go to the corner, then you have to calculate what happens, for example, after knight takes pawn, because now there's no time to go for the checkmating idea that I pointed out, because White has a sneaky checkmate idea himself, a checkmate threat of knight takes pawn. For example, if the queen comes out, knight takes pawn is actually check. It's not just a fork, it's checkmate as well. So, yeah, David Anton just calculating. He's trying to give Prag a really difficult decision. And Jovanka, if you had to choose, if you had 30 seconds, which way?
I would put my king at the edge of the board. And,
go in the corner.
Yeah, I would go in the corner. I would allow the capture, because one thing that I'm a little bit afraid of for White is if you just take everything off and you give up your rook.
Wow.
Maybe even give up the rook.
Okay.
And the idea is after rook takes rook, trap the bishop.
And now you could push the pawn forward and cage this piece. And OK, he hasn't gone this way. This way looked very tempting to me as well. I think instinct-wise I would have done that, but obviously we can't rely purely on instinct. We have to calculate as well, and Prag has decided it's safer in the centre. At least now the king guards this pawn, which, as we showed, is loose in some variations. So now, again, knight takes pawn is very, very well met by taking, and now threatening this nasty checkmate. The queen comes out, but also keeping an eye on the White knight. I think this would win a piece. And big question for David Anton is, how is he going to get his bishop out? How is he going to extract it? Because it's almost trapped. If the black pawn steps forward, there's no escape. Also, some threats against this pawn, some threats of black pushing in the centre. looks like it's going in Prag's favour, unless David Anton comes up with something special now.
All right. And in our fundraiser for UNICEF, we are getting closer to $70,000. Fantastic, you guys. And keep donating on chess24.com/donate. And the auction for a unique and exclusive chess lesson with Grandmaster David Howell. Only 26 minutes left now to make your bid. The current bid, $726, which is amazing, but this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to improve your chess with David and ask him about all his secrets and anything you might wonder.
Yeah, I don't really give lessons nowadays, so this is a bit of a break.
Yeah.
And yeah, an opportunity. So hopefully it will be fun and instructive for anyone who chooses to bid.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, White's bishop coming back in the evaluation bar, slightly over to left to Prag's side now. And that looks like a natural move to me. The bishop keeps an eye on both sides of the board, but there is still a possibility that that bishop will get hit at some point by a black pawn.
It's tempting, isn't it? It's tempting just to prepare the hit at least, or if I were feeling not so courageous, I would just develop my queen.
Yeah.
Just put her onto a good square and start eyeing up the white king.
Yeah, the black queen, it can't come and threaten checkmate anymore because the white knight is still on the f3 square. So, yeah, I guess you want to bring it to f6, Jovanka.
That's right, yeah.
Line it up on this f file. Looks very, very tempting. I mean, inching closer to the white king is always a good idea with the queen now, especially when the black knight sits so nicely in white's half. You could make an argument for maybe pushing a pawn or improving the black light squared bishop, but yeah, I think queen out by far the most natural.
Yeah.
And Pragg, we saw him in the last game, winning that kind of that masterpiece, that work of art. We saw him going for the opponent's king, one-track mind, but using all sides of the board, all angles. And okay,
wait 1 second.
He's taking risks. Do you like that one, Jovanka? Is there something wrong with it?
I have no idea. It just wasn't on my radar whatsoever. Gosh.
Because now there is an opportunity, if black wants to be greedy, to go grabbing material.
I guess that's his plan.
Is that his plan? Or does he want to just maintain this pawn as a wedge, just kind of that thorn in white's side that we mentioned? Okay, we have got to jump in because there was a huge reaction from you, Jovanka. It was on my radar, but you know me and my commitment issues. I didn't really want to touch this pawn because it looks so good, protected by its fellow pawn in the centre. But Pragg went for it. He's not worried. And now the white queen had to move. This pawn protected sufficiently twice, so the queen had to dodge. And now one idea could be a knight check, hitting the king, hitting the rook. This is a fork, and I guess this would lead to a capture and a sacrifice by white. And now a quick count shows that white is actually down a rook for just a knight and pawn. But this is still unclear because white's pawns are so strong on this left side, and I'm not so sure I want to go for this with black. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. But more importantly, this knight is just so strong. This pawn is so strong. Maybe they're worth more than a rook. So Pragg, if he just wants to be greedy, he'll jump in. But if he wants more, maybe he could, for example, bring his bishop out. He could think about starting to push this pawn forward, dislodging the white bishop. So many options for him.
Yeah, I love the idea of dislodging the bishop, actually. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I would... I don't think I would grab the rook, like as you indicated. I just think it's just too dangerous, too double-edged. Like this.
You lose all the quality from your position if you get greedy and give up your black knight.
Yeah. And this way you can establish a new chain, right?
Yeah. This bishop is actually trapped apart from one square. It has to move forward, attacking the black rook. But maybe Pragg can just be really kind of go for the aesthetic, go for the beauty prize and push his pawn forward. And yeah, pawn chains. This one is definitely stronger than white's selection over here now. And yes, you give up some material. Okay, he has gone for the materialistic option, but I was going to say, yes, you give up the black rook, but here you can take the knight, or you can even maybe take the queen, take with the queen and try to slide over to deliver a nasty attack again. But okay, Pragg didn't go for this kind of flashy continuation. Maybe there was a flaw to it. Instead, he chooses the simple approach. He takes the rook, and now he is ahead. Remember, a rook for white, pawn and knight. So still an advantage materially for Pragg, but a long way to go to convert it.
Okay. You told me, do not get too excited with the bar in this game. It will probably swing.
It will swing a lot still, I'm pretty sure.
All right, well, Richard Report is currently playing against Liam Lair. Richard Report is, before this round, outside top 8, but Ty informs me that with a win, Richard Rapport is ready for the quarterfinals. He needs to win this game, but he will be ready for quarterfinals no matter what happens in this game.
Yeah, I'm just looking over the Richard Rapport game. It's so hard to evaluate.
Yeah.
The evaluation bar is in the middle, but that means nothing. It's still super sharp. And
So
Rapport,
he has winning chances.
he has winning chances, but
Okay.
it's not going to be easy.
Now, look at the bar in the game between Vidit and Magnus. It's over to Vidit's side.
Ooh, okay. I've got to take a peek over just to update you guys. And, okay, this one, still very tense. Vidit has no, he doesn't have an extra pawn. It's, yeah, just in the balance, I think.
Okay, yeah, and the bar did go back.
Yeah. So, okay, so much drama.
Intense round.
Keep everyone updated as the results come in, as the blunders happen. And, okay, meanwhile, whoa, Pragg going aggressive with his pawns. We mentioned this was available earlier, this option, but now it feels a bit looser. Now the black knight's gone, the black king is a bit airy. Ooh, that one, instinct-wise, I'm not so keen on it, but maybe concretely it works. Maybe there's just no immediate flaw, because I think Pragg has the same idea. Once that bishop moves, the black pawn is going to advance, the black e-pawn, and he's just going to try and steamroller David Anton in the centre. Yeah,
it is very, very, very concrete thinking, as you say, because, you know, the bishop moves, then the black rook can move forward, and black has it in his pocket to actually push this pawn in the centre whenever, and white can't even get very fancy, you know, by attacking the queen, because then that just improves the placing of the queen. She goes to where she wants to be. So
I show this, Ivanka, because there's a few moves there. We're expecting the white bishop to move, and why not gain a bit of time while you move, attacking the black rook. And you mentioned moving the black rook, and then if white attacks the queen improves, right? It just steps out, and still some issues with this bishop. But at least here, white would be able to maybe step to a central square. I think Pragg's idea is maybe similar to what we showed a few moves ago.
Give it up.
Maybe just give up this rook and just push a pawn forward. And the thing is, there's no real time to go and capture this black rook, because you don't flick in this. You actually play what we call a Zwischenzug, an in-between move, and you capture the white knight instead, attacking the white queen, and only next move, once white deals with this threat, for example, taking with the pawn, now you capture the white bishop. And quick count shows a bishop for 2 pawns. It's still actually quite unclear, but I would prefer the pieces here. I think black's bishops are going to become strong later. So Pragg, I think he might even pre-move. No matter where the bishop goes, he wants to push this pawn. And, okay, we have this position. Is he... Okay, he goes for your option.
Yeah, but I don't like it now. You know, once I saw it physically... There's a funny thing, you know, once I see it physically on a board, I'm like, that doesn't quite appeal to me. But whereas you see it in your head, you're like, OK, that's a move. But he played that very, very quickly, and your move was so much better. I
mean, it's tempting at least. Maybe he was just worried about the clock situation. He wanted to be practical, no more risk-taking. He's got extra material, so he's done kind of half the hard work. But now, at least, as mentioned, the bishop can escape. He doesn't really want to go back this way. Looks a bit wrong. So why not just slide across with the rook and just drop the bishop back? And I still probably would prefer black, but at least white now has a really strong bishop and potential with these pawns later on. OK, and there we go. As expected, the rook hits the black queen, and the queen is definitely going to dodge, I think, to this square.
Yep.
And, yep, here we go. The white bishop could be protected, maybe, or it could just drop back. It's still really, despite the material imbalance here, despite still some crazy stuff happening, it's still anyone's game.
Yeah, no, definitely. Still crazy because of this pawn structure. And white still, we have to remind everyone, still has those 2 passed pawns.
OK, and, oh, sorry, I just changed game. You see my analysis board there. I was just checking in on Richard Rapport. This is their position. Black's actually doing very well because of these pawns. But let's go back to the game we're looking at, and let's go back to the players.
Ooh, this is intense. 2 minutes left on the clock for Praggnanandhaa, and just under 3 minutes now for David Anton. I'm just so curious if these two are paying attention to the other games and results. All games lasting very longer, except from Duda Ding. That was a quick draw to secure both of their spots.
They don't have time.
Yeah,
they only have 2.5 minutes.
That's a good point.
They should not be wasting that time looking at what other people are doing. They need to be focused on this incredibly sharp position.
They have looked super focused,
yeah.
to be fair.
And also looks quite tense, just from their body language. Both of them seem to be a little bit nervous, twiddling their hair.
Yeah, actually, I noticed a few months ago at the Grand Swiss when I played Pragg, just before move 40, I mean, it was a really complicated game. It wasn't clear who was better, but just before move 40, he started twiddling with his hand. I realised, actually, maybe I was doing quite well. So maybe that's a sign of nerves, just a nervous tick playing with the hair. And, OK, meanwhile, a couple of moves, black bringing his bishop out and white's queen sliding across, kind of keeping an eye on the centre from the diagonal, but also maybe supporting the advance of her pawns. Feels a bit superficial, though, the queen on this square.
And I just clicked into so on chess24.com, you can check out many streams. There's streams in many different languages. And I just figured I wanted to check out the Spanish stream where Pepe Cuenca, who always gets so excited, is commentating on this game, of course, following their Spanish hope, David Anton. I bet they are feeling nervous now if he's going to qualify.
Yes. Shout out to our Spanish-speaking friends.
Definitely.
And, OK, yeah, for the Spaniards, there is a threat to deal with. This white rook at the bottom of the board is attacked by black's bishop. And, OK, of course, David Anton spots it, just lifts his rook up one square. And now it might be time for this black rook on the top of the board on the left side to just slide across. Still, I mean, yes, the evaluation bar likes black. I think that's just to do with black's material advantage. The rook versus knight and pawn is a 1-point advantage, and that's reflected in the bar. But, yeah, still very hard to push this one further for Pragg. Anything he does involves pros and cons, drawbacks, definitely.
Yeah. But your move, yeah, just moving the rook towards the open line, getting ready to challenge the bishop makes perfect sense. And it's no risk. But this move is a bit mysterious.
OK. That shows he's really worried about white's pawns, but it didn't look like they were going anywhere, immediately at least. And, OK, the evaluation bar reacts. He's slowing down the advance of white's pawns, but his black pawn now may be more of a weakness than it previously was. So, as we mentioned, some advantages to that move, some real drawbacks. For example, that pawn is on a light square, could get targeted by white's bishop later on. Also, it costs a really valuable move. You could use that move to improve a piece, to push your own pawns.
And can white use that extra move? For instance, I was going to suggest pushing Harry.
Yeah. When in doubt, that's the motto, right?
That is the rule, right? OK, but David Anton just moves his queen.
I definitely feel that the time trouble nerves are already coming, because David Anton, he just improved the white queen, but is it even an improvement? It feels like he just wanted to pass the move back to Praggnanandhaa. He didn't want to commit anything. I think he's struggling for a plan with white. And, OK, black's rook does come across, as we advocated on the last turn. Very sensible, putting some serious pressure actually on white's bishop in the middle of the board, which is white's pride and joy, white's best piece, but only defended once, not defended by a pawn, so not quite anchored on any outpost. And also black has ideas at some point of sliding the other rook across, doubling up the two rooks on the d file. Two rooks are better than one, and that is actually a bit of a threat.
That is a huge threat. And how is white going to deal with that? Because ideally, white would like to, I was going to say, magically put a pawn on the h5 square and then try to... OK, but now...
Ooh, he only pushes Harry one square forward. You wanted it 2 squares, right?
I wanted it 2 squares because I'm not very subtle, you know. I wanted to push the pawn 1 square all the way up to h5 and then...
But wouldn't that also be sensible? Because then it would be protected by the other pawn.
Yeah.
It would be
Why
protected.
only one?
I think he's just at a loss for a move to play. I mean, I don't think anything is really appealing to him, and the clock is ticking down.
And I think now is the moment for Praggnanandhaa, after David Anton's played some really kind of hesitant moves, just to slide the rook across on the e-file, double up the 2 rooks against the white bishop. And I think that's going to cause some real headaches for David Anton. I think white's going to have to allow a rook trade. He's going to have to move his bishop out the way. But a trade of 1 set of rooks is going to help black. Remember, when you have a selection of pieces, when there's an imbalance, you want one of everything. It's like ice cream flavors, you want one of everything. And once you remove white's rook off the board, white loses a lot of control over the lines. White only plays with knights, and those can be kept an eye on. So I think this is an opportunity for Pragg. He doesn't necessarily need to rush with this idea, but he's got to move quickly. OK, he goes on the attack with his pawns. Oof.
I didn't expect that one. It is committable, because if it goes wrong, it's going to go seriously wrong.
Yeah, now black's position on this side feels a bit loose. That was not necessary. I think you should have rushed to trade things off while you had the opportunity. And, OK, His idea was to create a square for the black king. He didn't feel comfortable with his king at the top of the board, understandably. So now the black king also protecting the black queen. So...
But wait, David, is there not some G4 ideas?
Yeah, definitely in the air. For black king, in range of the white knights. OK, this hasn't happened. Actually, yeah, maybe you're right, Jovanka. Maybe that was a serious opportunity for David Anton. But now, after a trade, maybe still an opportunity because there's still a knight jump. There's a huge threat in the position. White's knight wants to go to the middle of the board, to the d5 square. It will hit the black queen, it will hit the black rook, and even the black bishop. That's a big threat. It has to be dealt with, and Pragg does. He controls this central square with his bishop. Yeah, I think he loosened his king too much. He should have pushed the black pawn just one square, just to control everything. He wanted to be aggressive, but that aggression might backfire. And look at this, a big, big threat again now for White. White wants to capture the f5 pawn, his bishop lining up against it.
There's no way to defend it, David.
Yeah, look at Pragg suddenly leaning back.
It's gone wrong.
It's turned. It was all to do with loosening his king's position, loosening those pawns. And he's had to give a pawn back, another pawn, and now White will just capture this guy with a knight. That's a check on the f5 square. Knight on f5 will thrive. White has great pieces as well. Oof. I think he just delayed the right... This rook move was the right idea 5 moves ago. He just... Right idea, wrong timing.
He just got way over ambitious. He needed to play a little bit more classically. And I think his nerves.
Yeah.
He wanted to force things, and he's lost a pawn. But look at those 3 minor pieces that David Anton has. You know, they're just running riot all over those light squares.
Yeah, the knights, they can't be kicked away from their posts right now, especially the white knight in the middle. In front of that pawn, that white knight is rock solid. And Praggnanandhaa just throwing pawns forward, giving up pawns. He wants to open up his bishops. I'm not so sure about that. I would have run away with the black king again. It feels too close to the white knights right now. So within checking distance. And, OK, what will David Anton do? Will he just retreat the white bishop? Will he capture this black pawn in the centre?
He has to be a little bit careful with how he captures that pawn. I mean, he can't capture with a bishop because black might get crafty and capture a knight. Or does it work?
That's a lot of calculation.
It's a lot of calculation.
It would be OK, but yeah, David Anton, OK, he decides to take the safety first option, dropping back his bishop. So reinstating this threat of the white knight going to that magical f5 square that we talk about so much. That would be a devastating fork check and hitting the black rook in the middle. But this is the thing, the evaluation bar, we predicted it right from the opening. It's just a crazy position, and it has been for the whole game. And it will continue to swing. It's just that...
And he has 10 seconds, under 10 seconds, OK, and he takes your advice and he puts his king in the corner on a dark square. This is great.
Especially when low on time, you want your king as far away from your opponent's knights as possible. I wouldn't have gone to the corner, I would have gone the other way, but at least he doesn't have to worry about checks.
But a new threat has emerged. And that is, he's retreated the bishop to attack the pawn. How are you going to defend that pawn?
8 seconds left.
And David Anton is actually very fast. I've played him at Blitz a few times. He's very quick. Pragg, of course, good too. But yeah, with this time of disadvantage, 18 against 50 seconds, it could come into play. At least Black has ideas now of bringing the black queen all the way into the bottom left corner and checking the white king on the first rank.
Can White get greedy and grab that pawn on a6?
I think David Anton wishes he had more time to work that out. And it's very brave to bring the white bishop away offside to go and capture a pawn. But if it's possible, it's probably just a very good move. OK, now clock's balancing out.
OK, safety first from David Anton. So maybe now he's threatening knight takes pawn.
In the centre, possibly. Yeah, that black central pawn weak. Now, look at this, Praggnanandhaa, no fear. When in doubt, push Harry the h-pawn.
Yeah.
And he's actually got a specific idea. He wants to push that pawn even further and open up the dark square diagonal for his bishop. But it does come at the cost of a pawn, as Jovanka mentioned. This pawn was hanging. And
OK, Praggnanandhaa just has to centralise the queen. Doesn't really matter, e5 or d4. It's moved to e5.
This white knight in the centre might be protected by a bishop.
And David Navarra, 3 points for him. That's taking him to 21 points. Same as these two guys. So with a loss here for either of these two, they're not safe.
OK.
Ty mentioned Navarra has a better tiebreak maybe than these two. So very, very important game. He's going to be watching this game now, David Navarra.
And Praggnanandhaa making that move with 6 seconds to spare.
He wishes it was 6 minutes, and now, ooh, queen trade offered. Is this going to benefit white? White has a lot of pawns. White has a knight and 3 pawns for black's rook. So white's actually ahead on material. Can the black rook gobble up the white pawns, especially on that left side, before it's too late? Praggnanandhaa, he's in trouble.
He's in huge trouble. I mean, it's all just gone terribly wrong for him. The problem is that if he tries to get greedy and grab some pawns on the left, you know, the white knight is ideally placed to defend those pawns.
And there we go. Pawn hunting. David Anton, he's going for black's remaining lone soldier on this left side. And, OK, Pragg doing the same, trying to use his rook to attack. But you can step this pawn forward, you can jump forward with the knight. Lots and lots of options. And 2 connected pass pawns now for white. This is looking almost like a white win. Those 2 pawns super strong.
OK, would you grab the... What would you do here as black? Would you go bishop takes pawn and just hope for the best? Black
can go and take this white pawn on the g3 square, because actually, if white recaptures, the black rook can take the white knight in the middle. But, oh, I don't know. I feel like those 2 white pawns on the left are just going to fly forward if the black bishop disappears. So I think it's a good idea, practical terms, centralising the black king. If the black king can pick itself up and put itself near those white pawns, then maybe you get to safety. But the black king's still a mile away. And, OK, Praggnanandhaa rocking back and forth. He knows he needs some magic now. He needs a miracle to save this game, because white's pawns are so close. Those white pawns will cost black a bishop, most likely, maybe even more.
Yeah, and here comes Charlie, and all Charlie needs is the assistance of some pieces to move forward.
Yeah, white's... OK, the white king comes in.
I didn't expect that one. Yeah, I thought the bishop would manoeuvre itself round, but no, OK, I like this.
Yeah. Unfortunately for black, white just controls all of the light squares, and you can only fight on the dark squares, but there's nothing on those on that colour complex. So, OK, the black king comes across. And your idea now, Jovanka, look at this bishop. It cuts off the black king's kind of route towards the white pawns, and it's going to take a step back, defend the remaining pawns, and just kind of those 2 pawns together, going to hold each other's hand and walk down the board. OK, sneaky there from Praggnanandhaa attacking the white knight, but this move, defending the knight, attacking the black bishop, multi-purpose. From David Anton, it's... I know the evaluation bar is not 100% sure whether it's winning, but it does look that way. The momentum is all on white's side.
Wow, and now with Navarro's win, 21 points. Richard Report has played a draw, 21 points. Then a draw, 22 points. I mean, would probably secure the place for these 2. And now it's not looking too good for Praggnanandhaa.
No, and David Anton, there's no reason for him to take a draw, because he's got no risk here. Even if white loses those 2 pawns on the left, it's probably still fine. It's probably still a draw. White tonight is just too strong. So David Anton playing risk-free chess, going for the win. And Pragg here, he is the one on the back foot. But OK, he's looking away. Does he think he's saving this now? Next move, no matter where the white king goes, black is going to go back where he came from, attacking the white knight and attacking the pawn next to it. So... Praggnanandhaa, good fighter.
He is definitely a good fighter. I mean, he's shown that throughout the tour. He's got a lot of grit and resilience. And even in these kind of quite hopeless positions, he's still finding opportunities to fight.
And I think just some calculation needs to be done here, but...
Would you step forward with the king, or would you just step back?
Step back, yeah. And now, once the black rook retreats, attacking the white knight, there's literally nothing else black can do, because the white pawns are advancing. The big question is, can white advance the B pawn right now to try and make a new queen? Just give up the white knight, but just bank everything on these 2 white pawns. And he doesn't do this. He's repeating the position. OK, surprising. So black can give another check here, and that's the 2nd time we'll have seen that position.
Maybe he's seen the other results.
Maybe he's just playing safe now, David Anton. He did take a while there. I'm not sure whether he looked over at the other games or the other results.
But there's no need.
There's no need. OK, he plays for the win, though. Okay. He's going for the win. He's not taking the draw going forward. But the black rook can, again, start attacking this white knight. And it's not so easy, the win, anymore. The black king, once it moves, suddenly the black rook has got an eye on both of white's pawns, and you can't save them both. Oof. OK, I mean, it feels like white should be winning still, because there are just so many pawns. White's pieces all so active, well-coordinated.
Maybe he's just going to switch tack, you know. After the king moves, he's going to go, well, actually, I'm going to grab your pawn. and say, yes, you know, you want those 2 pawns on the left. But, you know, like a hydra, a new head emerges.
Okay, a bit of an odd choice of square there from Praggnanandhaa going to a light square.
Light square doesn't quite make sense, does it? But if I were him, I would just play it easy. King take the pawn.
I must say, I was at the World Blitz Championship in Poland, and David Anton failed to win a position where he had 3 extra pawns on one side of the board against Anish Giri. So he's got nervous in this type of position before, but okay, wow, he's going all out on the advance with his king. The black king using itself as a blockader for white's pawns now. Interesting. Pragg finding resources. Okay, so it might be time for your idea, Jovanka. Just grab all of black's remaining pawns, get those off the board, remove any remaining risk.
Yeah. 25 seconds to make a decision. Yeah, I remember the game. It was when he was 3 pawns up, right? And he got checkmated, or was... or that was someone else.
It was a draw in the end, but yeah, either way, he failed to win.
Okay, he's been grabbing some pawns with the king. This is good stuff.
Okay, so if he continues grabbing pawns with the white king, he'll have 4. There we go. White has 4 pawns against black's 0, but black has the rook versus knight advantage. So can Praggnanandhaa hold? He needs a miracle still. He needs to somehow eliminate all of white's remaining pawns.
And according to Tai, if Anton wins, and also Vidit, look at the bar, in Vidit's game against Magnus Carlsen, if they win, Pragg will be out, unfortunately.
Okay,
He
so
needs a draw.
yeah, Vidit looks like he is winning against Magnus. Still some hard work to be done, though, in that one. So, yeah, I mean, I was going to say, is Vidit hoping that Pragg can help him out, or is it the other way around? But it looks like they're in a direct
Check out this
competition.
ending. So there's a possibility now that black can actually play bishop takes... No, it's not possible.
Yeah,
I was going
unfortunately
to not possible bishop takes pawn because of knight takes bishop. But OK, the bishop can step back.
Yeah.
Give a check. OK, Praggnanandhaa moves his king towards the action.
No good way for the black bishop to run and kind of open up a discovered attack against white's bishop. So it makes some sense to put your king in front of white's pawns. There might be stalemate ideas, or the king might act as a blockader while the rest of the pieces harass white. And OK, look at those 3 pawns, though. Those 3 foot soldiers. I mean, those were 2 scary pawns on the left side a few minutes ago. Now white has replaced them with 3 scary connected pawns.
OK, and I'm expecting the corner pawn, Harry, to move forward. OK.
In practical terms, you nearly never save a position like this. There's just no way. You need to somehow give up your bishop for all of white's remaining pawns. But it's not going to happen. Only 1 or 2 of the pawns will sit on dark squares.
But the bar in the Vidit Carlsen game just, I think, actually went over slightly to Magnus's side. Well, at least in the middle.
It's actually a dead draw now. Magnus found a way to trick Vidit, and he's actually removing Vidit's final pawn. It's going to come down to king and knight versus king, which is a draw. No checkmating material left.
So that means Vidit is out, and that means Praggnanandhaa's chances are growing again.
Okay.
Oh.
Wow.
Wow.
He won't know this, but he's still fighting like a lion in this game to save things and try to increase his chances. Okay, this white pawn advancing. I was going to say as well, the other scenario is if white's pawns all disappear at the cost of black's rook and bishop, the position, if it's just king versus a king, bishop and knight, that is a win. That is a checkmate. And I think David Anton will know how to win that one.
Yeah.
It's not easy, actually. Lots of top grandmasters have failed to win that, but it's a theoretical endgame. And OK, a knight check. If this knight is removed, yes, black can win a pawn in the process, but white's king will be too active. White's g-pawn will run forward, and that's just game over. Pragg needs to keep the pieces on the board. Actually, he's got the outline of a stalemate, at least. So he needs to somehow, if this position, black could give up his rook and give up his bishop, it's stalemate. But the problem is giving up a bishop is the hardest thing in chess. Your opponent doesn't necessarily need to take it. And, okay.
Well,
he's found a trick.
He's found a trick. So there's a very nice idea. We've got to show it, right?
We have to show this because right now Pragg is relying on one trick to save the game, and that is stalemate. His king cannot move in the corner, and it cannot be checked. Okay, David Anton dodging the trick. If he pushed his pawn forward, we would have said bishop takes pawn, sacrificing the bishop. And once the king takes it, rook takes bishop, sacrificing the rook as well. And look at this. This is stalemate. It's not check, and black cannot move anything. So this is a recurring theme that will arise the rest of the game. And okay,
But unfortunately, the king is in the corner. We've got to go back.
yeah, we've got to go back because white brought the knight back. And OK, checkmate is threatened now. it's just game over, unfortunately, I think, for Pragg. Look, he leans back. The white knight can jump in at some point. There's no rush, actually, with that move. And the black king trapped.
And
still one last trick in the position. After white recaptures, black can take this white pawn. And again, capturing this bishop is stalemate, but white will not take the bait. It's not going to be a draw because this pawn steps forward, and now black's bishop can't sacrifice itself in the right way. If you take this pawn now, white's king steps back, giving black's king some breathing space. No stalemate. And 2 connected pass pawns are a win in this position.
And Ty's telling me that's going to mean David Anton is through, and David Navarra is through. Praggnanandhaa will be out with that loss.
Okay, yeah, and unfortunately no hope. White simply has one plan in mind, and it's unstoppable. The bishop will move out the way, the white king will move, and white's pawns will trap the black king. Yeah, so close.
I know.
So close.
Heartbreaking.
On a
Real
tiebreak as
turn
well.
of events as well.
He was actually bossing this game for a large chunk of it, Praggnanandhaa. He just weakened his king at the wrong moment. And look at this. White's pawn is simply going to step forward 2 squares, and that's going to be checkmate. And also David Anton, that's really instructive. He's given black's king one square to breathe, so no stalemates.
There's still one chance. One chance. If you take away the h7 square from the king, well, then the black bishop can sacrifice itself.
Yeah, so, of course, David Anton, he's already seen the stalemate threat, or the stalemate kind of motif. We saw that earlier, and now the white king's just going to... Actually, I think maybe pushing both pawns would have been a mistake there. But the king, yeah, stepping across. And plus 100 means checkmate is coming. No way to prevent it. There's just one trick left. If white's g-pawn pushes, black can sacrifice the bishop, so white's bishop goes away. No more stalemates. And Praggnanandhaa, is he about to resign? I think he's giving up, and then his chances have gone. David Anton, really nice endgame technique. We've got to give credit to the Spaniard. But in a few seconds, we will see a result.
This is almost a little bit heartbreaking. He was 1 win away from qualifying to the knockout stage in the Air Things Masters. Praggnanandhaa. And now it's going to be basically down to tiebreaks, knocking him out of this tournament. Oh, after such an incredible performance, and look at that, 100 on the bar, and it's over. David Anton makes it through to the quarterfinals. It ends here.